The coin in the fish's mouth, the ultimate life hack. When God pays your bills, they needed to pay a tax. And I showed them that my kingdom has provision even in the depths of the sea. The sun was a warm, familiar presence over the Sea of Galilee, casting a golden hour glow that danced on the gentle ripples. Our days in Capernaum had settled into a rhythm that felt both profoundly simple and divinely complex. The scent of salt and fish mingled with the aroma of freshly baked bread from the village ovens. My disciples, men of the sea, often found themselves drawn back to its shores. It was a place of comfort for them, the world they had known before they left their nets to follow me. I would sit by the water's edge, my feet sometimes brushing the cool sand, and watch them. I watched Peter, his face a map of deep emotion, a man whose faith was as turbulent as a sudden storm on this very lake. I saw Andrew, his quiet and steady presence a grounding force. There was James and John, the sons of thunder, their fiery spirit still needing to be tempered by the love that I was showing them. They all had their own ways, their own struggles, their own ordinary lives that I was weaving into an extraordinary tapestry. We would teach in the synagogues, heal the sick in the streets, and break bread together. The people came to us from all over, from Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, and Judea, and from beyond the Jordan, bringing with them their hopes, their fears, and their diseases. We were living a life on the move, yet in Capernaum, there was a sense of home, a brief pause in the ceaseless journey of my ministry. The disciples in these quiet moments would often revert to their old ways. They would talk of fishing techniques, of the best spots to cast a net, of the changing currents. It was a comfort to them, a piece of their old selves they carried with them, a reminder of who they were before I called them. I cherished these moments. They were not just ordinary. They were the fertile ground where I was sowing the seeds of the kingdom. I was teaching them not just with parables and miracles, but with the quiet observation of how to live. I was showing them what it meant to rely on the Father for everything, not just for healing and wisdom, but for the very next breath, for the day's meal, for the strength to walk one more mile. Their nets lay on the shore, a silent testament to the lives they had left behind, yet the sea was still a part of them, and I knew it would always be. It was in this ordinary setting that the extraordinary was about to unfold, an event that would challenge everything they knew about provision and authority. The crack in the familiar rhythm of our days came in the form of officialdom. Tax collectors. They weren't soldiers, not the kind who carried swords and spoke with brutal force. But their authority was just as potent, rooted in the cold, unyielding weight of law and coin. I saw them approaching the house where we were staying, their faces grim and unsmiling. They were looking for us, or rather, they were looking for me. The disciples saw them too. A murmur went through the group. They knew what this meant. The half-shekel temple tax. It was a sacred custom, a tax for the upkeep of the temple in Jerusalem. Every Jewish man over 20 had to pay it. But we were a poor group. We had no fixed income, no coffers filled with silver. Our sustenance came from the generosity of the people in the Father's hand. The disciples' faces, once relaxed and content in the warmth of the sun, now held a shade of concern. They knew we didn't have the money. It wasn't a secret. We lived without worldly wealth. The tax collectors stopped in front of the house and called out. Peter, ever the one to meet a challenge head-on, stepped forward. I watched him. His shoulders were squared, his gaze direct. He was a man who wanted to solve problems, to act, to protect. He saw the tax collectors' questioning glances and heard their words. Doesn't your teacher pay the temple tax? It was a trap of sorts. It was a question designed to put us on the defensive. They weren't just asking about money. They were questioning my reverence for the law, for the temple itself. They were trying to find a fault in me, a way to accuse me of disrespecting a sacred tradition. Peter, in his eagerness to defend me, answered without a moment's hesitation. Yes, he does. The words hung in the air, firm and confident. I saw the flash of pride in Peter's eyes, the conviction in his stance. He had said what he believed to be true. Of course, I, the Son of God, would honor the law. Of course, I would pay what was owed to the Father's house. But I also saw the subtle tremor in his hands, the uncertainty that followed his bold declaration. He had committed me to something we had no means to fulfill. The crack had appeared, and a chasm of worldly responsibility had opened before us. Peter came inside, his face a mixture of bravado and panic. The other disciples looked at him, their expressions mirroring his inner turmoil. The unspoken question was in their eyes. How will we pay? He tried to act as if it were all settled, as if the matter of the tax was just a simple formality. But his spirit was troubled, and I could feel the weight of his anxiety. He couldn't meet my gaze. His eyes darted around the room, settling on anything but me. The air was thick with the silent tension of a problem for which we had no solution. The disciples, so accustomed to seeing me perform miracles of healing and feeding, now faced a problem they understood all too well: the harsh reality of worldly economics. A single coin, a half shekel, it was a small sum, but for us it was a chasm we couldn't cross. It was the worldly tax that challenged a heavenly kingdom. I watched them. I saw the shame on Peter's face. He felt responsible. He had spoken for me, made a promise on my behalf, and now we were in a predicament. The weight of his impetuousness pressed down on him, and I knew his thoughts were running wild. He was replaying the moment, wishing he had not answered so quickly, wishing he had thought it through. But he had responded out of a desire to protect and honor me, and for that I loved him. But his faith was still so often rooted in the visible, in the ways of this world rather than in the invisible, the ways of the Father. The breaking point wasn't just the lack of money, it was the disillusionment of the moment. We were the bearers of a new kingdom, a new way of living, yet here we were, seemingly subject to the old rules, the old taxes. It was a crisis of identity for them. If I was truly the son of the king, why were we expected to pay tribute to the earthly temple? The paradox was too much for their minds to reconcile. It was a moment of true spiritual and emotional crisis, a moment where the foundations of their understanding were being shaken. They were learning that the journey of faith was not about escaping the world's problems, but about seeing them from a different, higher perspective, a kingdom perspective. And in that moment, they had not yet seen the shift. I didn't need to be told what had happened. I knew. I saw the entire scene unfold in their hearts, in their spirits. I saw the pride that turned to shame in Peter's soul. I saw the worry that clouded the minds of the other disciples. I saw their faith waver just for a moment, as the reality of our lack of resources hit them with the force of a physical blow. But that was not the end of the story. That was the perfect moment for me to show them a deeper truth. As Peter came into the room, I met him not with rebuke or a lecture, but with a question that turned his entire world on its head. "What do you think, Simon?" I asked him. "From whom do the kings of the earth collect customs and taxes? From their own children or from others?" The question was a gentle, loving shift in perspective. It lifted his eyes from the problem of a half shekel and redirected his gaze to a question of identity. He knew the answer. "From others," he replied. It was a simple, logical truth of the world. A king's children are exempt from the taxes of their father's kingdom. My question was a soft whisper of a powerful truth. "Then the children are exempt," I said. The implication was clear. I was the son of the king of all kings. I was the son of the one true temple, the temple in heaven. I was not subject to the earthly temple's tax. The look on his face shifted from despair to a glimmer of understanding. He saw the truth, but I knew he still couldn't grasp the full implications. But the point was not for me to defy the law. It was for me to demonstrate my divine authority within the law. It was a delicate dance of revealing who I was without giving my enemies a reason to accuse me of rebellion. I was a servant, and I had come not to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. And so I gave him the most beautiful, most absurd, most divinely illogical instruction he had ever received. "But so that we may not cause offense, go to the lake and throw out your line. Take the first fish you catch. Open its mouth, and you will find a 4-drachma coin. Take it and give it to them for my tax and yours." The words were spoken with a gentle authority, with a smile that I knew he would never forget. It was a promise of a miracle, a provision from the Father that had nothing to do with earthly money or human labor. It was a command that broke the very laws of logic and reason and replaced them with the singular, breathtaking reality of a kingdom where even the depths of the sea held a treasury for the Son of the King. Peter's fear turned to awe, his shame to wonder, and the shift had truly happened. The purpose of this entire event was not about the half shekel. It was not even about the temple. It was about revealing a core truth of my kingdom and the Father's heart. The coin was a physical manifestation of a spiritual reality. The Father's provision is boundless and transcends the limitations of the world. It was a demonstration that my authority was not of this world. Yet I was here in this world to walk among them, to live among them, and to show them what true dependence on the Father looks like. I could have commanded money to appear in the house. I could have turned a stone into gold. I could have simply told the tax collectors that my father was the owner of the temple and that the tax was irrelevant. But that would have missed the point. I chose the fish for a reason. I chose to use the sea, the very place of Peter's old life, his old profession. I chose to show him that the same place where he once toiled for a meager living, the same place that represented the limitations of his humanity, was now subject to the will of my Father. The sea, the fish, the coin, it was all a profound and intricate parable brought to life. This event was a living lesson in faith. It was a message to Peter, a reminder that the shame he felt from his impulsive words was overshadowed by the grace and provision of the Father. It was a demonstration of a deep and abiding truth. When you belong to the kingdom, the King himself provides for your needs, often in ways you could never have imagined. It was a lesson that the logic of the world, the need for a job, the need for money, the need to conform to earthly laws, was a limited and fleeting truth. The ultimate truth was that the Father's will and provision were the only reality that mattered. This was also a lesson in authority. I was not telling Peter to defy the law. I was telling him to obey it, to cause no offense, to show reverence for the system, not because it was superior to me, but because I am a servant who came to fulfill all righteousness. The coin was not a sign of my submission to a human system. It was a sign of my sovereign authority over all creation, even over the creatures in the sea. I was paying the tax, yes, but I was doing it in a way that left no doubt as to who I was. It was an act of power veiled in an act of humility, a perfect reflection of the nature of the kingdom. I watched Peter as he walked to the shore, a new resolve in his step. The heaviness of the moment before was gone, replaced by a light of a child on a treasure hunt. I saw him take his line and cast it into the water. The other disciples watched in silent awe from the doorway. They hadn't heard the instructions I had given him, but they knew something extraordinary was happening. They were witnessing a moment that would forever be etched in their memory. He caught a fish, the first fish, just as I had said. He reached into its mouth, his hands moving with a newfound certainty. And there it was, the 4 drachma coin, the single piece of silver shining and whole, a perfect amount to pay the tax for both of us. It was a small thing, a mundane object, but in that moment it was a piece of the divine made manifest. The fish's mouth had become a treasure chest, the sea a bank, and the coin a symbol of the Father's unwavering love and provision. Peter came back into the house, holding the coin. The shame was gone from his face, replaced by a radiant joy and a deep, profound sense of wonder. He showed it to the other disciples who crowded around him, their murmurs of doubt turning to exclamations of amazement. They had seen miracles of healing, of feeding thousands, but this was different. This was a miracle that touched the very fabric of their everyday lives, a miracle that was so personal, so specific to their need. It was a sign that the Father saw them, saw their struggles, and provided in the most astonishing of ways. From that day forward, the story of the coin in the fish's mouth became a part of their collective memory. It was a story they would tell each other in moments of doubt, a reminder that the kingdom was not bound by the rules of this world. It was a story they would share with others, a testimony to my divinity and the Father's care. And so, the small, seemingly insignificant event of a temple tax became a timeless parable, a profound lesson that continues to echo through the ages. It is a story of faith, of trust, and of the limitless provision that awaits those who are children of the King. It is a story that shows that the greatest treasures are often found not through toil and worry, but through a simple act of obedience to the one who owns the sea, the fish, and the coin within. And it is a story that reveals that even in the most ordinary of moments, my Father is working in the most extraordinary of ways. Do you ever feel the weight of a problem with no visible solution? The tax collectors of this world, your debts, your anxieties, your impossible burdens, they come to you with a question you feel you cannot answer. You might respond with bravado, a promise you're not sure you can keep, just as Peter did. But in the quiet moments that follow, the shame and the panic settle in. I see that fear within you, that silent worry that you are not enough, that you don't have what it takes. You feel a chasm has opened, and your faith wavers in the face of what feels like a crushing worldly reality. But I did not come to teach you to escape this world. I came to teach you how to live in it with a kingdom perspective, to see with eyes of faith, not fear. Hi, child. Listen to my heart. I came to show you that the world's problems are simply opportunities for my divine provision. I looked into Peter's troubled heart and turned his gaze from the coin to his identity. You are not a stranger in this world. You are a child of the King, and the King's children are exempt from this world's worries. This truth is the foundation of your peace, and it is the beginning of my miracle in your life. My friend, just as I gave Peter a simple instruction, I ask you to do the same for me. The message of my kingdom is meant to be shared, to be a light for others who are still in the dark. If this message resonates with you, please show your support and join our community. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this message with someone who needs to hear that they are not alone. This simple act helps me to reach more hearts. For the purpose of the coin was never about the money. It was about revealing my Father's boundless love and power. I used a fish from the depths of the sea, the very place of Peter's old life, to demonstrate that my kingdom has provision in the most unexpected of places. Your impossible situations are my opportunities to show you a miracle that transcends all logic and reason. I am the one who commands the sea. So when the tax collectors of life approach, when your burdens seem overwhelming, remember the coin. Trust me with your taxes, your impossible burdens, and watch as I turn the ordinary into the extraordinary, providing for you in ways you could never imagine. You are a child of the King, and the kingdom's treasures are for you. I'm with you always.